Tracey, you've often written about how content marketing is chaos. And if you're listening, I'm doing quote hands because I think we've seen that in your newsletter and elsewhere.
It is chaos. Do y'all feel like it's organized?
Well, you're making me feel like it's organized.
yeah. It feels very, when you're talking, it feels very organized. So it's
oh my goodness.
Welcome to the Animals Podcast. I'm Ty Magnan, the CEO at Animals.
And I'm Tim Metz, the Director of Marketing and Innovation.
This season, we're taking you inside how enterprise content marketing teams function. You'll hear from some top content leaders, sharing the systems they use, the challenges they faced, and the lessons they learned along the way. Today, we have a great episode with Tracey Wallace. Tracey is the Director of Content Strategy at Klaviyo. And in this chat, we cover the importance of content distribution and distribution channels. We talk about how to coordinate content across different stakeholders and use them. And we also spend a lot of time unpacking how Tracey creates content roadmaps quarterly with her colleagues. There's a lot in this jam-packed episode. I hope you enjoy it. If you're like most B2B content marketers, you want to lead the conversation in your industry. At Animals, we help B2B software companies do exactly that by creating standout, survey-driven, state-of-the-industry type reports that help you grow your brand authority, backlinks, and pipeline. In just 12 weeks, we run a process that helps uncover narratives from a unique data set packaged into a beautifully designed flagship content asset that your whole team is going to be proud of. Book a consult now at animals.co/whitepapers and find out how to set the new benchmark for your industry. Tracey, thanks so much for joining us today on the Animals Podcast. One question we like to start out with all of our guests is, what content have you been consuming lately?
Oh my goodness. What content have I been consuming lately? I mean, a lot of Netflix, honestly. Other than that, I've been trying to really just get back into reading books, reading a lot of friends' newsletters. I really love Substack and even just like the Substack app. It feels like, do y'all remember, this was so long ago, where there was this concept of like lean forward and lean back content experiences. It's probably like a decade or so ago.
Enlightenment.
Yeah. Well, so like lean forward were like experiences like at your desktop where like, you're leaning forward, you're reading. The concept there was that things needed to be shorter versus lean back content is like when you're relaxed, right? And so like you're reading a book, maybe a Kindle, and Substack feels like my leaning back content place versus the rest of my day where I feel like I'm very leaned forward and really trying to get stuff in short clips.
Yeah, I dig that. I mean, sometimes I'll go as far as printing out a PDF and bringing it on an airplane or putting it on my desk because I'm kind of sick of looking at the screen. That is lean back content. Am I right?
That is lean back content. Dang, you're printing out PDFs. I don't have a printer anywhere near me. I love that though. That's amazing.
You will. Once your kids get into grade school, you'll have to have a printer.
That's why I have a printer too.
If you can give your short introduction too for our audience, for those that don't know Tracey Wallace yet, that would be great.
Awesome. Yeah, I am Tracey Wallace. I head up content strategy over at Klaviyo and have been doing content marketing since 2010, which is wild. I also run a newsletter called Contentment through my friends over at Workweek, where I try to help people feel seen, I think, and that this is hard. This industry is changing a lot, and that even folks who've been doing this for a while don't really have everything completely figured out.
Lovely. We'll definitely add a link in the notes too to the newsletter. It's been a consistent one and one that I think is, just you've got a leading voice in the content industry. So thanks for sharing what you've picked up along the years. Now we're here to talk about enterprise content, right? Yeah. And you've seen Klaviyo over 3.5 years grow from arguably not an enterprise. Where we draw the line on this is a little bit arbitrary, I'll admit it. But you're in probably the hundreds of millions of revenue or low hundreds of millions. You guys are much, beyond that now. You're a public company. So if you want to know revenue numbers, just look it up. I guess I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey going from startups, pre-IPO to post-IPO. And what are the big few things that you think have changed along the way?
Yeah, I know. So where you define enterprise is arbitrary. I think that's true for everybody. For me, when I first joined Klaviyo, it still very much was a startup. And then, of course, going through the IPO process is fun, wild. The company changes a lot. Content, of course, changes a lot. You see leadership change a lot as well. And that, of course, changes strategies quite a bit. For me, what has changed the most from startup to where I'm at now, I mean, you really can't move as fast. It's like that's honestly the very first thing in a startup. I can come up with an idea and probably have that idea executed by the end of the week. And that's just not true at large organizations, but for lots of really good reasons. Like I need to think about my global regions. Klaviyo is in the US, the UK, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Australia, Singapore. We are not just creating for one site or one language ever. I need to make sure that what I am producing is going to get proper distribution. At a startup, often content creation, I feel like, begets distribution. Where I'm at now, distribution begets content, right?
Nice.
So I
Yeah.
need to make sure that we have distribution and promotion plans in place before I ever put pen to the page. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Nobody is coming to Klaviyo's site specifically for the content unless we are driving them there. And so that's a huge change. Legal, of course, is a huge change. There's a lot of things you can and cannot say, and legal is a very big part of the process, as is procurement. So really a lot of it's operational changes, ultimately in how you bring things to market. You're working with a larger team and you have to like really be in the dugout with that team on a regular basis.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I've experienced that myself. And I'm curious, like, do you think that the output of a content asset from a startup, and it's like, you did it within a week, fewer people were involved, is that piece, how is it different than the piece that you produce when there are that many stakeholders in the mix? Did the quality change to you? Is it more consistent? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty big stickler for quality all the time. So I wouldn't say that the quality's necessarily changed. I think the goals are just different. In startups, and this is just one of the benefits of smaller companies, you're able to spin things up faster, often to react to kind of industry trends and opportunities that you see, right?
yeah,
Larger companies often aren't able to do that. Larger companies often don't need to do that, right? Like startups need to get visibility. Like just having your name included in those conversations is often a reason for creating the content. It's the visibility. Large organizations, again, don't often need that. Or you have PR teams completely separate from content that are working on that. To me, it's not necessarily the quality. Again, I think quality should be standard, like this.
Yep,
I can't
yep.
think of the word, but the same across
Like
the board.
table stakes. Yeah.
Thank you, table stakes.
Yeah.
But yes, it's more what the goal is, why you're producing it.
Yeah.
And of course, in enterprises as well. I mean, I would be remiss. There are multiple times where we do need to turn something around in a week, in a couple of days, and we certainly can. But of course, there has to be a conversation about what's shifting. And you're not just changing plans across a content person or a small team of content people. When we need to turn something around quickly, I mean, we have, different squads involved, socials involved, life cycles involved, webs involved. It's a lot of people that you need to have shift. And so it better be worth it.
Yeah, of course. And then, you got to piss some people off or like get some,
Okay.
Communications out, right? When things do inevitably change.
Right.
I'm curious then, how would you define the role of content at Klaviyo?
To me, I feel like content's central at Klaviyo. And keep in mind, so I'm content strategy lead, but that's for the marketing org. Klaviyo produces a ton of content. My marketing team produces a ton of content across campaigns, across SEO, webinars, different audience segments, different product segments. But then we also have a help team that's producing help documentation and a separate content, like an academy team producing online courses and like written courses as well. All of us are doing that across 8 regions, I think, right now. So content central, right? We're the I wouldn't even say the storytelling arm, but our PMM team, of course, creates, product messaging, documentation, frameworks, what that story is. And then we're the ones ultimately bringing that to market, creating content throughout the funnel, that the rest of our channels, they have to have content in order to hit their goals. Our lifecycle team needs content. Our social team needs content. Our paid media team needs content. We are at their beck and call, but we're that central org where everything is housed, and ultimately the folks who know our audience and incredibly well.
Interesting. So then your relationship to product marketing is they're creating content. Like maybe take me around the horns, like product marketing, create some content. What is your involvement there? How about with demand gen or campaigns?
Yeah. So the way I think about it is content's success relies on two really big things that at a lot of organizations can really be out of your control. At Klaviyo, we're lucky to have a really honed in process. But at the input stage, we need product marketing documentation. We need to know what is the product, what has changed, how does it compare to competitors, who is it for, all the things. So you need the really good inputs from that product marketing standpoint. And then of course you need a solid web infrastructure. And I'll say that's even a big change from how I thought about startups. And startups, like you think about web infrastructure, but like you just don't have that many pages. So it's like not as big of a deal versus, at Klaviyo, we have thousands of content pages. That's not even everything. So figuring out web infrastructure and then, of course, a global infrastructure and how it all lives is wildly important. So that's kind of the output. So you need those two things baseline to be successful, proper inputs, and then like the proper place for it to live. Mm-hmm. And then over here at Klaviyo, we work across squads. So we have a small business squad, we have a brand squad, our web team kind of functions as its own squad as well. And those organizations are working together. And then of course, requesting content. So we're looking at promotional calendars, planning quarters out, making sure that we have everything we need to hit all of those audiences. Because I've been over at Klaviyo for about 3.5 years and like been through the cycles, I'm often included with a lot of those squad leads in building out those plans. Again, because I also have the performance data, I know how a lot of this has worked, if it hasn't worked. But of course, I work really closely with our web team and our campaign leads to understand pull through. So like, how much traffic did we get? And then of course, how much ARR did that generate?
Got it.
Did that help?
Yeah. We're getting there. We're getting there.
I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, we're getting
I know
there.
It sounds it's a machine, truly. I see it in my head.
Yeah, I want to go deeper in the machine a little bit. Like, how do you handle the requests and the prioritization? Like when you're planning, or like where do the decisions happen? It's like this person wants this, that department wants that, but then ultimately, how do you get things on the roadmap and prioritized?
Things are prioritized differently depending on squads. So we have, of course, our company OKRs, marketing OKRs, like everything, funnels down, but it's our squads that are really helping to determine priority. And we, of course, have individual squad leads that ultimately say yay or nay in terms of how like content gets prioritized. Any random request that I might get, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't have an intake process. People have to come to ask me on Slack for things. My very first question back to them is always, how are you going to promote it? How are you going to distribute it?
Distribution. Yeah, back to that.
And
if
almost
it's intentional,
always,
like not having an intake form, you're like, I don't want that shit. You got to come to me.
Because the vast majority of the content requests that are supported in a strong go-to-market motion with all the channels involved, those are requested in squad meetings through like advance. Large groups, right?
Like quarterly.
Quarterly, right? Yeah. And so these random one-off requests, the answer isn't always no, but it's often no. And it's because there's no promo plan. Somebody wants a piece of content up, likely because they think that like blogs of your still drive a ton of traffic and that folks will see it if we get it up. And that's just not the case. Like we publish a piece of content, no one's going to see it unless we distribute it. And I, as at least in an enterprise org, I don't have distribution power. That's another difference from startups where like as a content lead or a head of marketing at startups, I had distribution power. Here, I am creating for those channels to distribute. That content needs to fit those channel strategies. Me publishing something and bringing it to the lifecycle or my social team means nothing to them if we haven't already agreed on it. Or of course, I can go and, say, hey, so-and-so messaged me. There's some new standards changing in a certain part of the world around XYZ type product. We produce something really quickly to address it. It's approved by legal, blah, 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 blah. Would you get this in a newsletter? And they're like, yes, great.
Yeah, you have to pitch them. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's pitching them, but like that just rarely happens. So there is no intake process. The intake process is quarterly planning. That's where we put everything on the calendar, map everything out. And again, so much of this is that we need to understand our resources, our budget, and resources here aren't just content resources. Like, can we produce? Can we edit? Do we have enough PMMs to review? Do we have enough web producers to get things live? How do we do this across 8 regions? If we're talking about 200 pages, for instance, in a single quarter in one region, that adds up fast. So yes, our intake process is quarterly planning. Other than that, there is no intake process. People Slack me. The answer isn't always no, but the very first question is, how will you distribute it? And if there's no good answer, then the answer is no.
I just want to zoom in one more thing on this, like prioritization by distribution. Like when somebody comes with an ad hoc request, what is good distribution? Does it mean they have buy-in from another department, or does it just mean they have a brilliant idea? Like, can it also be an original idea, or is it more about like they have secured buy-in from another department that kind of controls distribution?
I mean, there's not like departments that control distribution, but yes, you need a squad to distribute content for you. Okay. That is how things get distributed. That's how things go to market. And if you are coming to Tracey with your content idea and you haven't talked to a squad about it and figured out if it can be prioritized there, you're barking up the wrong tree. I work with squads. I help support and manage their programs, their goals. And again, we don't produce content that will not be distributed.
I imagine you didn't land on this model from day one at Klaviyo, right? How did you get here? Like, did things change? There must have been a couple chapters before this, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yes. I mean, Klaviyo has matured a ton, specifically likely because of our IPO. So of course, we didn't used to work in the squad model. When I first joined, we were very startup-y. Content also controlled distribution. So my team was...
there you go.
Was coming up with distribution plans, coming up with content to fill those in and out. That worked decently well. It just wasn't scalable. It's also really challenging. And I know I see this a lot with people responding to my newsletter, especially because like working at an enterprise now, I do sometimes feel like I'm so far removed from some of the actual problems a lot of content marketers face, where they're like, well, how do I come up with a social campaign? I'm like, I don't know. I don't got to do that. I used to have to do that. And there were ways that I figured it out, but like, that's just not in my remit anymore, which feels really great and lucky. But yeah, it used to be. The problem though, with content working, like figuring out distribution and also writing content, is the amount of content that you can create is vastly reduced, because figuring out distribution plans and supporting distribution plans rightfully takes 70-80% of your time. And content people often aren't experts in those channels. That's why these large organizations hire people who are experts in those channels.
Yeah.
So yeah, in this model, we can move way faster, we can create a lot more content, and we can also be certain that the content we're creating maps back to company priorities, because it's going to be distributed through those channels, and those channels are not going to distribute something that's not going to get them closer to their goals.
Interesting. So zooming out a little bit, the content team within Klaviyo sits under what part of the org? And then what is your relation to the help team, right? The team that's writing help articles, or the academy team, if there is any?
Yes, there is an academy team and a help team. They both live on our like customer support side of house. My team lives on marketing and kind of works within a center of excellence to serve our squads. I have weekly, bi-weekly, I think they're bi-weekly now, meetings with our help and academy leads. We also have a customer experience lead as well, who works really closely with both of those teams. So all of us work together a ton. In fact, the last time I went to Boston was for a meeting about on-site search, where we were all working together to figure that out. But yes, we all live on separate teams. We have separate goals. There's, of course, are focused more on retention, and marketing, of course, is focused on acquisition.
Nice. And is there like any like governance, or like what are the things you collaborate on?
Across academy and help?
Yeah. Bi-weekly is
Yeah.
pretty frequent, right? It's like, what are the common topics that you're trying to solve?
I mean, the main thing we're trying to solve for is don't duplicate each other's work.
Yeah.
That's the primary issue. Our academy team is phenomenal. I mean, they are creating, weekly webinars, these amazing like certificate style courses, and even like written content. And so with them, we are often trying to figure out, what is the role and purpose of marketing content in terms of like pulling people into the funnel, and at what stage are we handing that baton over to academy, where you're getting really into the details of how a product works and educating people there, understanding that like a lot of our academy content can also be really useful for marketing and vice versa, especially for academy when we're educating folks on new products. Help Center, their stuff is so super technical. We don't work with them all that much on like specific content. But again, because all three of these orgs have existed for a really long time, we sometimes have duplication issues where maybe our help center has published something around best practices that we think might live better on the different part of a site, or our help center team is really fantastic. I mean, they update so much content every single month. Like they are just like on top of it.
Yeah.
And so part of it's like, how can we learn how to govern better from y'all? So there's just really a lot of, I think, like process exchanges. And then of course, making sure that we aren't duplicating efforts. If academy is going to create something that would be really useful for marketing, like marketing wants it, let's use it. We don't need to recreate it. We don't need to take any resources. I'm going to go get a squad lead and show them the water that the academy teams do it. And we're going to get it all set up so it can work for both sides of the organization.
Nice.
I love that. I feel that feels like such an enterprise problem, that we need to meet to make sure we're not duplicating our work.
Yes.
I love it. I think before we let you go, we just want to zoom in a little bit on the metrics and the measurement, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I think you're focused on growing your own audience. What's the single metric that tells you that a piece is building that owned audience for you?
Yeah. So I don't have a single metric.
Okay.
My metrics are based on squads, right? So every piece of content we create is mapped back to very specific goals. So anytime we are creating, content through our web team for SEO or LLMO, we are looking, of course, at traffic, visibility in those engines, and then conversion rate specifically through those channels. Typically, when I'm working with, one of our segments, so like a small business org, we are looking at lead gen. So, content downloads, webinar registrations, and then of course tracking that all the way through to ARR with help from PMM on enablement. And then with our brand team, of course, that's more of a thought leadership play where we are looking for, working with our PR team to help get mentions there and really looking for visibility. We work really closely with our not SEO, our social media team on that side too, to track what's driving a bunch of engagement over on social.
Are you able to bring to the table for these different stakeholders, like insights in terms of the type of content, right? The format of content that's worked in the past, and like you get to steer strategically in that way? I kind of heard that in what you were giving us earlier, but is that true?
Yes, for sure. I can go and pull my own metrics. Super helpful because I am across all of the squads, and that's not true for every person that works on the marketing team. Some folks are very like squad focused, which makes sense. Again, you need to scale because I can often see the full picture. I can, of course, pull through what's working in other channels where we can repurpose things. And in fact, over the last year and a half, one of the things we've gotten really good at is making sure every piece of content 90% of our content can be used for every single squad so that we're never in a content deficit. And we, of course, just have squads promoting different assets at different times and really increasing the impact of each piece.
Well, Tracey, you've often written about how content marketing is chaos. And if you're listening, I'm doing quote hands because like I think we've seen that in your newsletter and elsewhere.
It is chaos. Do y'all feel like it's organized?
Well, you're making me feel like it's organized.
Yeah. It feels very, when you're talking, it feels very organized. So it's like,
oh my goodness. Like no, I mean, I guess we can always get better. I mean, I really do feel like over the last year and a half or so, we have made some big strides over here. And I feel really proud of like where the team's gotten, the collaboration we have, some of the results that we're seeing. Like it feels very exciting and good. But God, of course, there's always so many areas where you can fix things. I mean, I told you, I don't have an intake process. That wasn't by design. That's a bug that turned into a feature. Like, that's great. I love that. But that was literally because I couldn't find time to do it for a while.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, yeah, just Slack me because I figure the answer that you're going to give me is not going to be a great one. And if it is a great one, then I'm going to send you to someone else first. So it's organized in the strategy. It's organized in how we work. But of course it can always get better.
Nice. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Where can people find and follow you?
Yeah. Oh goodness. I am on LinkedIn, though I know I told y'all earlier, I'm rarely on there. But yes, I am on LinkedIn. Really though, signing up for Contentment. And then you can always respond to Contentment. I have that email on my phone as well. So I see everything that comes in. That's probably the best place to like talk to me. But I do get on LinkedIn at least like once a week, but I'm trying to, like all mentally healthy people, trying to reduce my time on social networks where I can.
There you go. That's great. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks so much, y'all. I appreciate it.
Should I ask you first for once?
What do you think? I always put you on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Ty?
There are a few things that I'm really taking away. The distribution first mindset. It's like so easy to get away from that, but she's really living that and breathing it, right? Like if you request content from her and there's no distribution channel or distribution plan built in, she's going to say no or say like, go figure it out with someone else. That's great. Not producing content that doesn't have a distribution plan attached to, like critical. So like that perspective, I think it's like so easy to kind of deprioritize distribution, but like distribution is kind of the only thing you have as a content team. You kind of have to figure it out. But when you're a public company, like you kind of have this stuff figured out. And you can't oversaturate it. And so why create more content than your distribution channel will allow? You know what I mean? Like you're just going to hit diminishing returns on those channels. We live and breathe this distribution first mindset. Like all of our briefs for clients have distribution channels up at top, right? And we talk about it all the time with our clients. And still somehow like I can feel it once in a while, like slipping into the, second tier priority when you're thinking about what content you want to produce. What did you learn? What are you taking away?
No, I mean, I wrote that down because I thought, yeah, it was like, I think this idea of like prioritization by distribution is really good. It's like, if you can't answer the question, like then you just don't have to talk to me, right? It's like, I can totally imagine that works really well in terms of like an intake. And I think, I mean, maybe zooming out a bit, it's a good way to think about like maybe for your org, it's something else, but like, what is the key question that actually helps you to filter and prioritize? It's kind of nice. Instead of a form, think of like the essential question that will also get you kind of get rid of like most useless requests. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, I was just, I love that answer of like, we have to meet to make sure we don't duplicate our work. I feel that's just such a big org problem. But I can also see that it's totally true. Even on a very small scale at Animals, I sometimes have somebody on the team say, hey, I would like to write about this. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I think we have written about this in the past, and that's just our little blog, so to say. So yeah, if you get this enterprise skill, just like keeping track of everything that's going on and that's been done in the past and what everybody's working on, it's just, there's just tremendous effort.
One thing we haven't seen folks do within this season yet is, or talk about, and maybe we just haven't asked the right questions, but it's the topic of content governance. Okay.
Yeah.
So from my experience, having worked in an enterprise, we had to go through a lot of the creation of content standards, of guidelines, terminology banks, and maintain these things so that other content contributors, in the examples she gave are perfect, right? Like the support team doing help articles, the academy team doing, learning courses, followed those guidelines so that you didn't have people using different terms or, you understand the ideas. It sounds like she has that as just kind of informal right now, but I'd be curious if we can dig in with future guests about this topic and see if they have anything more formal set up.
I also like the lean forward and lean back content. I was just thinking like, I think it could be revival there with AI. It's like a lot of AI content is, I think, lean forward content, and maybe we need more lean back content, like the books we've been doing with Unit 21 and now Mo Engage. Yeah, like more lean back content. Maybe that's what we need.
This podcast is a lean back podcast, no doubt.
I hope so.
Yeah. If you're like sitting there scribbling down notes while you listen to this, I'd love to hear from you. But I think we're more of like a passive learning kind of play here, right?
Yeah. Shout out if you're taking notes. Let us know. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Can we use those notes for our next blog post? That's it. I think onwards and upwards, like I continue to kind of shape my mind at what's normal within an enterprise, what's a little bit different, and how to design your operating model according to the kind of environment or context that you're in. So I'm ready to go design some enterprise content strategies and programs. And hopefully some of you listening are gaining along the way too.
I'm going to consume some lean back content now, I think.
Yeah, go enjoy it. Get a coffee, have some laid back content hours. We'll see you on the next episode at the Animals Podcast.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.